You made it to level 2, deeper questions leading to deeper answers. I'm Tomas Garza, and I'm here to help you decide to transform. I'll be setting the pace for the process to support your unfolding. Learn and commit to a practice that brings simplicity and an awareness of what is ready to be released. Join me now and allow the experience of a deeper sense of love. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decide to Transform. I have a very special guest in store for you today. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and joining me from Vancouver, British Columbia, is Leah Morrison. Now, this is going to be a lot of fun and highly informative. Leah is known for her small frame and large personality. She comes to you as a trauma-informed coach, incorporating vibrational healing, mindfulness, and meditation into self-care instruction. Her intuitive ability to see the unseen, to explain the unfelt, and to reach into the root of what is holding you back is unparalleled within the healing community, and one that she takes very seriously with great respect for the process of coming home to oneself. Whether you're working through chronic pain, disease, or disease such as depression, anxiety, thought patterns, or limiting beliefs, Leah shares valuable tools that create dramatic transformations in every single area of your life. And this is going to be a lot of fun. All right, Leah, welcome.
Thank you. Hello. I'm excited to be here.
This is so much fun, and I'm glad that you have taken the time to join me here today. It's great. I've been looking forward to this conversation because you're bringing so much to the table. And one of the things that pops to my mind right away is an energy and an enthusiasm. So would you say a little bit more before we go into anything here? Where does the energy, where does the enthusiasm come from for you?
Oh, just a passion to have a little bit of fun in a very messy and heavy life.
I love it. All right.
I mean, life is messy and it can be complicated, and there's so much seriousness all of the time, especially right now as we're working through a global pandemic and hopefully coming out the other side. But I just don't subscribe to it. I think laughter is the best medicine in the world, and so I try to, have as much fun as possible within the heaviness.
Yeah, well, and you make an excellent point. I mean, for those that may be listening 3 or 4 years from now, we're recording this in April of 2021, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic with all kinds of things going on. And the emphasis on fun is that's a beautiful thing. Now, have you always held this as a core value of yours?
Oh, no, no. No. It took me a long time to figure it out. I mean, the trauma that I've gone through within my life has been quite extensive. And I lived in it. I was in the story, and I was in the stress, and I was in the emotional depravity of my own self. And so when I started to pull myself out and heal and really understand the science of the mind-body connection, I started to realize that I was missing joy. And how can I cultivate joy? And so it is a passion of mine every day to find a way to laugh and have a good belly laugh, or to make somebody else laugh, or even twinkle in their eye. And, there's a lot of comedians out there that are like, why are you so funny? Well, it's the trauma that makes us funny. We're able to make some jokes, but yeah. It's important to be able to find the sparkle in life. Otherwise, what's the point? It's too hard. We need a little bit of balance there.
Right. It really is. And, this is true even in times of, non-pandemic times. Mm-hmm. So the last year has really brought all this to the fore. But, do you do things like walk or dance around the house singing ridiculous songs out of curiosity?
All the time.
Excellent.
We've started just in the last 4 years, really, almost 5 years now since my divorce. I realized I wasn't happy. And so coming out of the divorce and being with my 2 children, who are now 13 and 6-year-old boys, I realized that we were all living in this sense of anxiety, and I wanted to find some fun. So I just started whipping out my 90s dance moves while cooking dinner.
Fabulous.
And putting on some good music and then, challenging my son to a dance off down a Walmart shopping aisle, and, having a lot of fun in the car. And we started to celebrate what I could only describe back then as weird. We started to celebrate the weird and celebrate the individuality and celebrate the joy. And so it's just been recent in the last, 5 years that I've been finding myself going, okay, there I am. Hello, this is fun and this is good. And it helps
Yes.
the kids too.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I've got a daughter that dances in the supermarket. Part of it is to horrify her 18-year-old brother who thinks his friends are going to watch. So
it is actually a threat that I've made to my 13-year-old son. You piss me off, I'm going to be rolling down those windows and playing Gangster's Paradise when I'm driving through and dropping you off at school, and I will be singing at the top of my lungs. He's like, okay, mom, okay.
All right, I'll do whatever you say.
I'll do whatever. Yeah. Please don't embarrass me.
Don't sing Gangsta's Paradise. All right.
I love that song.
Yeah, I do too. And the 90s dance moves. So, I know the listeners are thinking of a lot of songs. Yeah, 90s dance moves.
You're whipping out the sprinkler and the Roger Rabbit and the Running Man and all of the good things. But yes, I do that a lot with my kids and make up some rap songs here and there and just have some fun.
Yeah, that's fun, and the passion to have fun is what we're talking about. I really, I can really relate to that, and I know a lot of people can. But there's so many people that are blocked from that, and you work with them all the time, and you've got a journey of your own on this.
Yes.
As a coach, it's very interesting that you refer to yourself as trauma-informed coach. So would you say some more about what you mean by that?
Trauma-informed is a whole body and mind approach. It's actually a specific modality when we're working with people. And unfortunately, a lot of even clinical counselors and psychologists and therapists are not trauma-informed, which blows my mind in the mental health aspect, because if you're going to therapy, it is to heal unresolved trauma and to work through, high levels of stress, which are traumatic within the body and the mind. So trauma-informed approach is coming at a way where you can connect into your body. And when you connect into your body with reverence for who you are instead of who you're not, it can create an opening that wasn't otherwise there or that you didn't notice. We are so disconnected from our physical body that we think that we're separate, and it's not the case. And the moment we can find that unity within ourselves in mind, body, spirit, that alone is a game changer in your life. And we're taught to run from our own selves and to run from discomfort and uncomfort. And I teach people to run towards it, because that's where the light comes in, and that's where some joy and happiness starts to come in and things start to make sense to you.
Okay. Yeah. So running toward then the discomforts of foundation of this modality.
Yeah, absolutely. Understanding it. It's really connecting in where you're going, that's why I act the way that I act, or that's why my body feels this way. Oh, and it's not something that's wrong. When we feel anything that's not pleasure, we think something is wrong with us. And there is no negative emotion. There is nothing negative about feeling the anger or the sadness, but we are taught to run and run and run. And so when we can actually sit and climb into that anger for a minute with intention, it eases so much quicker. We move through it, and it doesn't hold space within our body. Emotional dis-ease creates physical disease 100% of the time.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that is such a prevalent idea these days that it makes sense to people. But why in your experience are people so reluctant to connect to the physical body?
Oh, I think it's because we're taught from a very young age. I mean, if this resonates with you, it definitely resonates with a few of my clients, or quite a bit of my clients. As a child, I'm almost 41, so being raised in the 80s, children are meant to be seen, not heard. If you're angry, go to your room. If you're sad, I'll give you something to cry about. If you're happy, get outside. I don't want to hear you. That was very much my childhood, with no disrespect to my mom. She did the best she could with what she had. right? And our parents do, all of our parents, even when they screw up, are doing the best they can with what they know.
Right.
And until they know better, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, when we give our children timeouts, we're telling them that they are not allowed to express those emotions. Instead of giving them tools to actually help them move through with emotional regulation, we are telling them that it needs to be put in a corner, or you're not allowed to feel that way, or we get angry with them for having a temper tantrum. And then we go into schools and we're muted. We're taught to just sit and behave without processing anything that we're going through, right? Well, don't think that way. We're told that a lot. We're told what not to do. And instead, we need to, I believe, and I do believe and see the culture shifting significantly in the last decade.
Yes.
It's been quite significant. But teaching, it's okay for you to feel angry. It's not okay to act in anger this way. Here's a healthy way to handle your anger. It's okay to be sad. You're not going to get stuck there if you allow yourself to process it in a healthy way. Understanding that this sadness is just, well, I often say tears are love leaking from your face,
Okay.
because it's
Yeah.
just coming out of you, right?
Yes.
And the secret to life, in my humble opinion, is that it's love. We're all just seeking it. We're seeking acceptance from our superiors, our bosses, our friends, our family, our peers. We're constantly seeking that acceptance and that love. And the moment we can flip that around and find it within ourselves, we stop seeking it because it just comes to us like a domino effect. It's a default. As soon as we find that love of self in a healthy way, everything else defaults to loving us as well. And that's where I try to get people to see.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so this is really foundational stuff here. It's the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of all of spirituality, actually,
Yeah.
is love itself. And as you've put it, it's the secret to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I love that. So how do you, when you work with people, how do you help them to get closer to this love of self that you're discussing here?
It's reminding them of who they are, not who they aren't. And,
Mm-hmm.
I started out with, and you could do this on your own, and anybody who's listening, I started out with this one, usually within the first couple of sessions of the program. If you decide to work with me, I get you to write down the list of 5 people that you love the most in life, or
Okay.
that you respect the most in life. These are your people. You would do anything for them, whether it's your children or your partners or your best friends, or anybody, even somebody you look up to in the media or something like that. What are the
Sure.
attributes that you love about them? What are the characteristics that allows you to love them? And then I get them to say that about themselves, because we truly seek out people, and we are magnetized towards people that we feel about ourselves on the inside. We just can't see it. So if you're to list out 5 things about your favorite person in the world, and then I get you to turn around and go, I am funny, I am love, I am generous, I am intelligent, and all of these attributes, and I get them to actually see it. And we talk about it. I mean, this is a very simplified version, but we talk about it and realize that that's who you are. We are so hell-bent on living by labels and diagnoses. And, I ask anybody, I started out, who are you? Tell me who you are. I will get, I am a mother, I am a, admin assistant, I am an executive, I'm a doctor, I'm a counselor. I get all of these people are like, this is who I am. Well, that's not who you are. Who are you? And they sit there and confused. Okay, well, how would your best friend describe you? Oh, I don't know. And then all of a sudden they feel vain for describing something beautiful about themselves.
Right.
And that's total horse shit. It's
Mm-hmm.
horse shit.
Well,
Because
I agree. Yeah.
we need to be able to find that confidence and that empowerment within ourselves, going, this is who I am, and I am everything that is good in this world. And so my job is to remind you of the goodness, so we can move through all of the stuff and the voices that have been telling you who you aren't.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the trauma.
That this is it's very deep level stuff, and I can picture somebody wanting more specifics. What do you mean?
Mhm.
Who am I? Right.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Right. I can picture that, because that's not a question that we're taught in in any society, really, to
Mhm.
ask. And if you're listening, and you said, "Well, my parents encouraged me to ask, who am I?" Then you're quite fortunate. The
Yeah,
rest of
you
us
are
don't
quite
have that.
fortunate because even, you're asked as you're growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Hmm.
And that frustrates me too,
Yeah.
because who you want to be, as far as the way that I'm raising my boys is, you know, what type of person do you want to be in the world? Not who do you want to be, because you're already this person. Now, how do you want to cultivate that goodness within yourself so that goodness is cultivated? When somebody leaves your presence, I want them to leave me feeling better than when they came. And that's whether my family, my friends, my clients, and us talking. I
Yeah.
always want to feel better when I leave somebody's presence and have them feel the same. That's who I want to be when I grow up. And that's who I'm going to emulate and try to cultivate every single day of my life.
Mhm.
So when we teach our children that to be kind, it's a game. It changes the narrative for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. It does. It changes anyone's narrative. Just that switch to love instead of fear. And now, how did you arrive at being a trauma-informed coach? I mean, what was it about this modality or your experience that led you here?
Ooh, now that is a story.
Oh, okay.
So-
Well, we like stories.
yeah. I can say it started my oldest, who just turned 13. He was born premature. He was 2 pounds when he came in. He was 2.5 months early
Mm.
and almost died a few times his first year of life.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Okay.
and I'd lived my whole life with depression and anxiety, suicidal as a teenager and in my early 20s, and just really, truly hated myself.
Mm.
And it actually makes me emotional to think of how much self-loathing I held within me. And I would run from everything and shut down. I didn't know even how to process happiness. I didn't believe it. And so there was just this disassociation within me. So when my son was born, it was it took me into a postpartum depression so severe that within 4 months I had a psychotic break, and that's what the doctors called it. And over the next year, I was having upwards of 20 seizures a day.
Oh, wow.
I dropped to, and I mean, I'm 5'3", I'm a small person, and I dropped even more weight. I was just a skeleton of skin and bones. And the doctors, in all of their efforts to help me, because my anxiety was so severe, I couldn't even leave my house. I was just worried constantly that my son was going to die, and so it was very significant. And they pumped me full of medication. Within a year, I was on 12 different types of medications and 200 milligrams of OxyContin a day,
Oh, wow. Okay.
doctor prescribed.
Mm.
And my day was just time dispensed pills constantly. And they would give me anti-anxiety and I would have side effects. So they give me another pill to combat the side effects. And then I was having more spasms and seizures. And within a year, I was finally, after seeing a couple neurologists, finally diagnosed with what they called conversion disorder, or otherwise known as psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, and a form of functional neurological disorder,
Okay.
which is trauma induced,
Hmm.
all trauma induced.
Sure.
So the neurologist who saw me was like, we're dealing with a mental illness. Are you open to hearing that? I'm open to hearing any diagnosis to lead me in a direction of where I need to go. And if it's my mind, then I can work with my mind. I just need to know how. Which road
Sure.
do I have to take? Give me a
Yeah.
blueprint and I will follow the line. And so he goes, you need therapy. You've been going through a lot of trauma. And I knew that I had had significant trauma from my childhood. I have a lot of dissociative amnesia. So I have years and chunks and people missing from my memories growing up. And so I got myself into psychogenic or psychosomatic psychotherapy and was seeing a psychologist at the same time. So 2 different forms of therapy weekly, got off all of the medication and started really realizing that the trauma was inducing all of this. So anytime I had any form of a trigger, I would drop into a seizure. You look at me sideways, I'd drop into a seizure. I'd smell something, I'd drop into a seizure. That's how my body was processing my trauma because I didn't know how to feel. And when I did feel, I felt self-loathing and deep levels of hatred towards myself for
Okay.
existing.
Hmm.
And so through the therapy, we got off all of the medication And I started recognizing I started having this fascination with how the mind is so unbelievably powerful. Now, how do I go the other way?
Yes. Yeah.
So I started researching the science of the mind-body connection and found my mentor, Tina Cleland, who is an energy life coach. And she took me under her wing and just showed me where my energy was and the scientific part of it. I mean, if you listen to Bruce Lipton at all, he's a neuroscientist, but he's bridging the gap between neuroscience and spirituality. It's the same concept. It's just different language. And so I started diving into that more and more and more, started realizing I have this unbelievable intuitive ability that was maybe brought on by trauma, and started studying. And I was hungry to understand myself. And through all of that, I rediscovered all of my childhood trauma, which was an insane amount of sexual abuse and rape by the hands of 9 men from the time I was very young age until my last assault being about 6 months before I met my now ex-husband at the age of 25. And so being able to go through all of that and go, okay, this is what happened to me. And this is where I got through with the therapy. They would crack me open and get me to talk and then leave me on my way, but I didn't know what to do with all of it.
Yeah.
Now, what do I do?
Right.
So I was trying to create a plan for myself. And so I started setting up a structure of this is what I need to do after I have therapy. This is where I need to go. This is the things that I need to write down. This is who I need to talk to after therapy to work through and create these tools that I would never slide back into. And I discovered I love it. And I was desperate to help other people. It was just this passion that came out of me. So I started researching and learning and educating myself and training for the last, we're going on 8 years now that I've been training through these types of modalities, trauma-informed meditation, mindfulness, energy, the science of the energy, and really researching. And then in the last 5 years, it's developed into this beautiful practice where I'm helping people remember who they are. And, I get a lot of questions. Why aren't you a counselor? Why aren't you a therapist? Why didn't you go to school for that? And it's because I don't want to belong to a body of authority. And that's the crux of it right there. I want to be able to do what I do without any regulation boxing me in. And the people who need me will find me, and it's helping them.
Yes.
Case in point, we're sitting here and chatting, right? And that's because the work speaks for itself, but it's not me doing the work for my clients. It's the clients doing the work for themselves. They don't need or require 10 years of therapy. I think that's ridiculous. Why are people in therapy for 10 years? Something is not working.
That's a really good question. 10 years is a long time for conventional talk therapy by anyone's standards. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned something a minute ago that is worth pointing out again, is that you would undergo conventional talk therapy and you wouldn't have something to do with it. Yeah.
It was just crack you open and then send you on your way and you can figure it out. But if you don't know and you're not taught specifically, okay, if you're feeling this, then sit with it and understand it and write about it and talk about it and don't shame yourself over it. And giving you these are the rules to move through with this type of emotion, then you're not self-doubting and climbing back into that shame spiral for feeling, which we do, right? And we're taught as females and as men, be a man, which is, what does that even mean?
Well, as a man, I don't know what people actually mean by that either. So
emotions are your birthright. That's the human experience. And to limit those emotions for the sake of somebody else's comfort is total crap. And we do that. We are conditioned to behave for somebody else's comfort and not for ourselves. And so it's not a selfish thing to go through. It's necessary. I think it's necessary to allow ourselves to feel comfortable, and somebody else, if they're uncomfortable with our comfort, that's their problem. That's a them problem, not a you problem. And so really working with that and those boundaries and that self-reflection is the deepest part of what I do.
Mhm. Okay. Well, this is it's very in depth, and it sounds like really in depth work that you do with people, because it's clearly in depth work that you did yourself. And as you
Hmm.
mentioned in the last couple of minutes, it really was a process, a big time process for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to ask you about your intuition, because
Mm.
you use it and you put this into practice when you work with people
Hmm.
all the time. Now, do you feel like your intuition was always there, or do you feel like your intuition was the product of the trauma that you experienced?
I think the intuition was always there. As soon as I started to open up to it and go, oh, there's something bigger than myself,
Hmm.
in forms of energy. And whatever your language is, whether that's God, whether that's, spirituality, gods and goddesses, or it doesn't mythological creature, I don't care, fairies and gnomes, whatever, aliens,
Yep.
it's just energy personified, right?
Hmm.
And we need to personalize things and label things for us to feel safe. And when we find that faith, and
Yeah.
the faith can be translated into energy, and that
Hmm.
energy is how we behave, it's how we move. I mean, you take the 50, what is it, 50 trillion cells make up the average human body,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and you take one of those cells, one of the 50 trillion, you put it under a microscope, and there's anywhere from 5 million to 2 trillion molecules in one cell. And you take one of those molecules, and what they've scientifically proven in the last like 15 years through epigenetics is that our molecular structure holds emotional energy like lint.
Mhm.
And so when we can work with that emotional energy, we are spiritually connecting into ourselves. And so to be able to tap into that intuitiveness, when I think back on my childhood, yeah, I could notice there was energies. Yes, I could feel somebody's emotion before I felt my own, but I didn't understand it. Therefore, I thought it was something was wrong with me.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody would be crying and I would be crying. Somebody would be angry and I would be
Mm.
angry. And I was just mirroring what was happening around me. And until I recognized, oh, okay, I feel. And because I feel so deeply, I hide. And because I feel so deeply, I'm also shamed by society. And so I just need to turtle. And so when I met my mentor, she really worked with me to understand. And it was interesting because as soon as I got off all of the medication and started getting healthy, I started seeing colors around people. So I
Oh,
started to
yeah.
see auras.
Okay.
And so if somebody would be singing and they're connected to that passion, I see color come out of their mouth. When
Mhm.
somebody's playing music, I see their fingers light up like ET fingers, and it's this
Cool.
beautiful, and I'm like, I am tripping out. I feel like I'm on a psychedelic acid trip all of the time, but it was just the energy that I was able to see. And once I started learning how to control it, where it wasn't overwhelming me, I realized that I could work with it and actually cultivate it in a
Mhm.
way that helped me and helped others. And medical mediumship was born out of that as well. So I see inside the body like lifting the hood of a vehicle, and you see the engine and how it works, and you can hear things, and a mechanic instinctively knows where to go. When I am working with somebody and they're talking, I get pinpoints of years in their life of when trauma happened. And so I'll be able to
Okay.
very gently go, what happened at the age of 7? Just sit with that. And they'll be like, oh my God, this.
Mhm.
And looking through that and looking at the way that our mechanical body works, that's where the intuition now is a foundation of what I do.
Okay.
It's like an extra party trick.
Yeah, well, and it's fun. It's a
It
fun
is
extra
fun.
party trick. So if you're looking at a party trick and there's colors coming out of people's mouths and ET fingers and things, I would say
Yeah.
that's a cool party trick. Yeah.
Well, I've been told watching me watch live music is a show in itself because I'm just
Oh,
like only into it, and I got the music bass going on and I'm just enraptured because I think it's beautiful
mhm.
to be able to witness passion in color.
Yeah, that's a really strong visual.
Yeah,
That is, it's a really strong visual.
yeah.
How's your air guitar?
Pretty good, I think.
Good?
I
Okay.
like to
Awesome.
swing it around with my big arms.
Beautiful. All right. That's fun. Yeah. Well, Well, yeah, and this is something that you raised some really. I mean, we're laughing because it's fun, but
Yeah.
there are some important points in there, and
Hmm.
people are shamed. You've mentioned shame in a couple different contexts in this
Yep.
conversation. People are shamed for being intuitive.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think this is, and this is where the trauma informed piece come in. I
Okay.
trained through Alison Quinn out of UBC, University of BC, and did a few of her courses there. And I loved it because she's quite well known, and she's been training a lot of, I mean, everybody who was in this program with me were doctors and counselors and therapists and needing that trauma informed piece. And she goes, science is now saying the unexplainable is starting to become explainable, and tapping into
Yeah.
your client emotionally and trying to energetically connect with them will allow them to, it will provide space where you understand them, but they have a space where they start to understand themselves. So it's really tapping into the mirroring in your neurons. And we do that, right? And you'll notice if anybody's listening, when you've talked to somebody and you're really excited and you see their excitement on their face watching you, they're mirroring you. No, that happens within our neurons, and why we are attracted to somebody and why we're not. And when we can do that with our clients, when we can mirror them and really connect in intuitively, it's a deeper sense of safety.
Okay.
And it
Hmm.
doesn't need to be intrusive. It's just
Hmm.
holding space in a way that is not usually held space. We're not
Yeah.
psychoanalyzing you. We are sitting there going, ah, oh, yeah, that sucks. And this has been hard for you. And how are you feeling about that? And really actively listening to their pain,
Hmm.
which a lot of people don't do. I mean,
Right.
active listening is a lost art form that needs to be taught,
It does.
because
It does.
we
Yeah.
listen to react and fix and respond without actually hearing the words coming out of somebody's mouth.
Hmm. Yeah, it really is a lost art, especially these days with social media, where people are engaged with their telephone and they're supposedly listening, but
Mm-hmm.
or listening to respond, of course. Yeah, most definitely. So, with the color coming out of people's mouths, which is something that I'm coming back to. Yeah. Do people see color coming out of your mouth and ET fingers when you're doing air guitar?
Nobody's ever actually said that to me, but I
Oh,
would
okay.
thoroughly and welcome the opportunity to
Right
have
on.
it.
All right. So, right, and well, listeners, you'll be able to find out how to get hold of Leah and remember remember that you said that on here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remembered actually saying it to my chiropractor,
Oh,
and he
okay.
was working, and he's so energetically connected, and he was working on somebody I was watching. I was like, dude, do you realize how much color is coming out of you? And he just kind of gave me this little smirk and a small little nod, like he knew exactly what I was talking about, but he wasn't about to expand on it. I'm like, all
Oh,
right,
gotcha.
that's
All
pretty
right.
cool.
Okay. Yeah, but
Most people who are
a lot.
energetically inclined or connected intuitively, which we all can be, it's
Hmm.
just
Oh, yeah.
connecting into our own energy.
Yeah.
And it can be, taught and developed and cultivated in a healthy way where you don't victimize yourself to stuff.
Sure.
Um, it's really quite beautiful and healing. I think
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
ultimately what the next step in my healing process was understanding spirituality for myself.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've read the Quran, the Bible,
Oh, okay.
the works of Taoism, Buddhism. I was searching for answers when I
Mm.
was sick. I would pray to everything, including the Save on Foods clerk. I was just, anybody who can hear me, please hear me and help me. And
Hmm.
sometimes I would voices come back. I'm like, what? Am I going crazy? And I dare not tell my psychiatrist that I was hearing voices.
Yeah.
But when I met my mentor, she's like, okay, well, you're hearing yourself and you're hearing spirit and you're hearing energy, and it's
Hmm.
beautiful. So why don't you listen and write it down? Don't be
Yeah.
scared of it. Just respond to it with love, and you'll hear the love come back to you. And that changed the rest of my life.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Respond to it with love, and you'll hear
Mm-hmm.
love come back
Mm-hmm.
to you.
Yeah.
Yes. Hmm. And so, if someone is listening and they're maybe intuitive themselves, or in the place where they haven't really fully embraced it, what would you recommend to somebody who really wants to do what you've done with leaning into that and developing this
Mm.
intuition?
Finding a mentor that is based in the space of love and not fear. And this is really important because spirituality as a community is beautiful, but there's a lot of fear-based practices out there. And you need to
Yeah.
protect yourself, and you need to do this, and there's evil spirits and dark energy, and I try very hard not to subscribe to that, because when you are working against the fear, you are living in that state of fear.
Exactly.
And that goes with everything in your life. When you're sitting in fear of what could or should or would, and when you're sitting in a state of I should be, I could be, I whatever, you are limiting yourself in the expansion of what that love actually can cultivate within your own body. So when you are leaning into intuitiveness, meditate. Absolutely meditate. Go through meditation. Do sound therapy. Do Reiki, and start to experiment with people's uh, beautiful gifts, because if there's a spiritual worker out there who's doing energy healing, they want to be of service. And to be of service to other people is to observe your own self. Observing has, observe has serve right in it. And that is a self interest that should be expanded upon. So I think when you tap into intuitiveness, it's to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that are in a space to expand and grow and cultivate, and not dampen and box and tell you that this is the only way, because there's a million different ways, and it should
Mm.
all be explored in beauty.
Yes, and one of the things that I've had people write to me and tell me is that they're really grateful that there's everything in the world at
Mm-hmm.
our disposal. You mentioned you
Mm-hmm.
studied a lot of
Yeah,
spiritual traditions. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and it's when you start to look at all of it, because I get, I try to be tolerant towards intolerance, because if I'm intolerant towards intolerance, then I am equally as intolerant. So when I look at, I would have conversations with family members, and very religious family members, where it was Jesus, just Jesus, and that is it. And if you did this, then you were going to, if you didn't get baptized, then you were, going straight to hell. And all of that was fear propaganda that I've never in my entire life subscribed to. I don't like the propaganda of fear in religion.
Uh,
And so when I started to explore, I started noticing, oh, this Quran, there's so many beautiful passages in it. Oh my goodness. It was just, and if I read it in a space of love, I could feel the words of love and the energy of love come through this piece of work. Same with the Bible, and same with
yeah.
the anything that you read. And so when I started, I'm like, well, I believe that, and I believe that, and I'll take this, and I'll take this, and I'll take this. And then I created this spiritual practice where it is about encompassing all, in all of the beauty, in
Mm.
all of the love, and creating my own sense of faith. And
Okay.
that's where I feel safe. And I feel that everybody should do that. If you feel
Mhm.
safe believing in Jesus and just Jesus, then power to you. That is beautiful for you. And you should absolutely stick with that.
Sure.
It's finding what's safe for you. And when we can sit in that emotional safety, um, we expand into ourselves a little bit more. And that's
Yeah.
the goal. Love and expansion.
Yes. Love and expansion. Those are good goals, and 90s dance moves. That's another
Yes.
goal.
Yeah. Doing
You
the
know,
robot.
we have to have some of that, right? Yeah. Yes, and it's so important about the safety, and I think that what we see in the world is so many people lashing out and just attacking each other because they themselves don't feel safe, and
Mm-hmm.
they're-
Well, especially with COVID right now,
yeah,
there's a lot of shaming, and it's based out of fear. And how dare you behave that way, because now you're putting me at risk. Um, but you are responsible for your own self. You cannot control anybody. The only thing that you can control in this entire world is you and your behavior and the words that come out of your mouth and your language. Language is the most powerful tool in the world. It can create and destroy. There's been no world war that's been started without somebody speaking sideways
Hmm.
and deciding to speak off. And usually it's because of trauma. I mean, look at Hitler. He had a terrible, terrible childhood,
Yeah.
hurt people. And he
Hmm.
perpetuated that in the worst means possible
Right.
to humanity. But
Yeah.
that's ultimately what people are doing on small scales, is perpetuating that hurt. And so when we can see that somebody lashing out at us is actually not about us, it's about their own pain, then we can step away from it and separate and go, this isn't
Hmm.
about me. And I'm just going to hold space for you to feel whatever you got to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you've mentioned a couple of times the term holding space. I think people are really kind of confused,
Mm.
don't you, sometimes, about what that really means. So, yeah, if you were to define what does it actually mean to hold space for you, what would you say?
Is to sit in support without speaking. And it is active listening. So if you were to come to me and be angry, right? When there's any form of conflict, you're like, Leah, you really pissed me off. Me to
Mhm.
hold space for that anger for you would be, okay, tell me about what's going on for you. And you sit and you listen. And I hear that you're feeling this. That's a form of active listening, is holding space and allowing that person to move through and feel however they want to feel. And I hear you're really upset with me, and I am very sorry that you are feeling this way. How can I support you in moving through this? What can I do to work with you? That in itself is holding space for you to not take anything personally and go on the defense or offense, which allows us to, we end up butting heads when that happens. Or when somebody's in a lot of grief and working through a lot of trauma, we as human beings try to, well, don't think that way, and well, it was for the best, and what if you thought of it this way? And we're trying to change their mind and minimize how they're feeling in that moment. And if you really give somebody the space to go and feel all of the emotion that they need to feel in that moment, then they move through it. And you just allowed them a gift of time where they were able to process how they were feeling, so they no longer sit in it and it doesn't leak everywhere, because our emotions leak everywhere.
They do.
They really
Yeah.
do. I mean, anytime I've been flipped off in traffic, I'm like, "Oh, you've had a bad day. Okay, I'm just gonna back off and realize." And because that's they're leaking emotion because they haven't processed whatever's going on, and they're not grounded in their own energy and their own self.
Now, when somebody cuts you off on the freeway, do you find it's easier to say, oh, they've had a bad day than maybe it used to be when you might have flipped them off in the past yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still human. I'll be like, what the fuck?
Mm,
I will still go,
for example.
but at the same time, I'll be like, okay, I hope it calms down. And it's just, it's a practice that you have to actually put into place when somebody's angry, or, you walk into Costco on a Sunday at Christmas time. There's a lot of frustrated, angry people around. And so when you are patient, knowing, then you are not diving into it. Therefore, you are being safe within your own self.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, and I think there's a lot to that, being safe within their own self and helping people to get there. So if someone were to want to find out more about what it would look like to work with you and the services you offer, how would people reach out and get a hold of you?
So you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Leah Morrison 1. It's got the number 1 behind my name. Somebody else has the Leah Morrison handle and I cannot get it. That's my handle. You can also find me on my website at leahmorrison.com. And through there, you can book a free discovery call where we can just chat about my services. But all of my services are described within the website, and you
Okay.
can book and
Hmm.
see the prices and all that kind of stuff. I do offer an 8-week program where I take people through their trauma. It's a very intense program. It involves weekly sessions, weekly energy healings as well at the end of each session, where we chat and we move through whatever it is you're working through. And I offer free, just for people to have a sample of what I do. It's been going, I just started this about a month ago, every other week, I've been going online live on Instagram and doing medical intuitive demonstrations, which
Okay.
have been quite fun. So you can come in and ask me a question and see how I work, whether it's about your body or any type of medical stuff. I will say, even in this podcast, that I am not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor. I advocate for self-advocation. You really need to take responsibility for your own self and take what I say and go and try and prove me wrong. It's really important that you do that, because that will either validate but it also allows you to be more accountable for your own health and wellness, which I think we all need to do, instead of just diving in and asking somebody to fix us.
Yes, we absolutely do. And this is leahmorrison.com and the Instagram handle at leahmorrison1. Okay. So question about your IG lives here. Are they at a set time that you schedule?
Yeah, so recently I've just in the last two, every other week on Tuesdays from 6 to 7. I'm about to start hosting a class on Tuesdays. So I'm going to see if I can still do that, and I might flip the time around a bit, but I'm advertising for it. So if you follow me on Instagram, there'll be some postings here and there about where you can find me. And I'm setting them up as events also on Facebook. Facebook handle is at Leah Morrison Healing. And so you can find those events there, or even on my website under my events page. Everything will be listed, the free events or any workshops that I'm doing. I know with COVID, I usually do a lot of workshops and host retreats, and with COVID, there's been none of that. So I'm fingers crossed, very hopeful that BC will open up soon and we can start doing some fun stuff where we're actually looking into each other's eyeballs.
I think people are really missing that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's nothing like feeling the energy of somebody standing in front of you, and it's a beautiful experience, and we're all missing that desperately.
Yeah, we really are. And Zoom is wonderful in its own right. We didn't have that as kids, but I think we're all missing the in-person interaction for sure.
Yeah, we're definitely living in the Jetsons time now, hey, with the video phones and
yeah. It's pretty cool sometimes, I have to say.
Well, I mean, we're able to connect. I know that nobody else can see us, but we're looking at each other through Zoom, and that's pretty awesome considering we're very far away from one another.
And when we were kids, we didn't have things like podcasts. So there's that. Yeah. So Leah, this has been such a pleasure, and I've learned a great deal. And before we wrap up here today, what would you like the listeners to take out of this? If there were one or two kind of highlight items from our conversation today that people should pay attention to, what would that be?
Well, I believe that I try to leave my clients with these ingrained in them, and everything in life, everything starts and ends with you. Okay. And the moment that you realize that, then you can take personal accountability for your own behavior and your own trauma and your own healing and health and wellness. Everything starts and ends with you. I do believe that there's only one thing that we can depend on in this world above all else, and that is that nothing stays the same. So when you are really down and out, you will shift out of it. And when you're really happy, you may shift down, but that's actually the beautiful mess of life. And then when we feel like we are hopeless and we can't get through this and we are stuck and nothing is ever going to help us, finding the right person to talk to will always be very good, but know that you do have the power within you to work with it. You just have to reach out for the resources that will, and it's investigating. Go to school of your own self, right? Really invest in yourself, because the return is unprecedented in this world.
Yeah, it really is. And, I would just echo to anyone that is in need of any service like this, that there are resources available to all of you.
Well, and that realizing that self-care is not selfish, it's necessary.
Right. Yeah. I've had people tell me it's a good selfish, but yes, it is necessary. Yeah.
It's necessary. Yeah. And a lot of people out there believe that taking care of themselves, especially parents of young children too, taking care of themselves is not, it's always put on the back burner. But if you take care of yourself in a way that promotes joy and health and wellness, then your children by default are taken care of.
Yeah, they are taken care of, and they'll replicate that because we
And we want
all
more.
replicate. Yes,
Cultivate the love and the
yeah.
goodness
We want cultivating love, goodness, and air
and dance moves.
guitars. Yes, and dance moves. Yeah,
Yes,
90s
yes.
dance moves. 90s
And the
dance moves.
occasional ridiculous rap. My son and I actually have this thing that's been going on for a couple years, and we send dad jokes back and forth to each other, and just for a little, shits and giggles every once in a while.
I
And
love
so
it.
there's a few
Yeah.
people that have, where's your next dad joke, and sending them off to just random times, and it just brights up somebody's day. An
Yeah.
eye roll is entertaining.
It is entertaining. There's so much that can entertain us, and an eye roll is good. Laughter is great.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
fun. Yes. Well, Leah, thank you so much for joining me here today. And thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing, and for talking about dancing in the grocery store and 90s
Mm,
dance moves, because I know that people need that right now more than ever. This has been a real pleasure.
thank you so much for having me. It's been so good to talk to you as well.
Now, this has been Decide to Transform with Leah Morrison, and I'm your host, Tomas Garza. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. And make sure that the next time you go to the grocery store that you bust out into a 90s or your favorite dance moves. If it's the 70s or something, that's cool too. Make sure you do it in the produce aisle with a lot of people watching and their video cameras on. All right.
Shimmy, 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 shimmy.
Shimmy, shimmy. All right. Yes. Have a great day, everybody.